and the world came tumbling down. Just as the battle of Jericho, and the world came tumbling down.
In the evening light of Hong Kong, flight BR382 comes into land. What brings people to Hong Kong? Many of them come here on business. Hong Kong is one of the great international business centers of the world. Here, East meets West. Despite the uncertainty of Hong Kong's future, expansion continues. New buildings are still going up. Many people come here as tourists. They have a choice of famous hotels. There's lots to do and see. The clock tower and the bustling Star ferries are Hong Kong landmarks. And of course, it's a wonderful shopping centre. There's almost nothing you can't buy, probably cheaper than anywhere else. Even leaky boots, power shoes, and fat leather goods. It's a city that never sleeps. Everywhere, there are people. Hong Kong's population has grown enormously over the last few decades. It's now more than 5 million. To house so many has presented the authorities with a daunting problem, and yet somehow homes have been provided for the vast majority. When the first waves of immigrants poured in, blocks of flats were specially built, basic accommodation to meet the desperate needs. Since then, apartment blocks have improved in style and facilities, and they house many more people. A housing project like this may accommodate 250,000. Each window represents a family, and each family has its washing to dry. And there are the boat people, the families who live their whole lives afloat. Many of these people rarely come ashore. They have floating shops where they can buy everything they want. Fortunately, Hong Kong is capable of supporting its huge population. It's a hive of business activity. There's always something to do. Even if it's only selling from curbside stalls, most people can make some sort of a living. Immigrants have poured into Hong Kong in recent years. It seemed like a haven of prosperity and freedom, and it drew them irresistibly. Let's pick out one person from the millions and see how he came to be here. One man at random. The odds are 3 to 1 that he was not born in Hong Kong. Let's turn back the clock and see if we can find out. The year is 1978. Chun Hung Ying is his name, and is engaged in the most desperate adventure of his life. Chun is one of thousands who have made the bid for freedom in this way. Hoping to dodge the patrols watching for illegal immigrants from mainland China, he's been lucky so far. His contact is waiting. He has organized Chun's escape for a considerable sum of money, known as a snakehead. So far, so good, but there are still plenty of dangers ahead. The frontier with mainland China is carefully guarded. It's not easy to escape overland. And the Hong Kong side is just as carefully controlled. Like many illegal immigrants, Chun has a relative in Hong Kong who is helping him. He's very lucky. His relative has a car. Many immigrants have to get to town as best they can. Some take the obvious way and get on a public bus. The police frequently stop them. And passengers without identity cards are sent straight back to China. But private cars are often stopped too. This could be where Chun's luck runs out. His luck has held again, but it was a close thing. Once again, a relative plays an important part in Chun's adventure. This time, it's an aunt. She has agreed to give him lodgings while he finds work and somewhere to live. But homes in Hong Kong are very small, and she has 3 children, so there's not much room. But the cousin assures her that it won't be for long. Next morning, Chun sets about finding work. But when he admits that he has no identity card, the employer wants nothing to do with him. This was to be the pattern everywhere he went. For almost a week, Chun continued his search for work. But the lack of an identity card was an insurmountable obstacle. His aunt is worried. People are asking who you are. If one of them tells the police, I'll be in bad trouble as well as you. His cousin has an idea. There is a way out of this. You could go and live in the walled city. The walled city is a place where no questions are asked. You could find somewhere to live there and get a job there as well. There are lots of small firms, and they don't worry about identity cards. Once, the walled city was surrounded by thick stone walls like many other Chinese villages. During World War II, the Japanese pulled down the walls and used the materials to extend the runways of Kai Tak Airport. Now, blocks of ramshackle apartments stand where the walls once were, and the city of Kowloon surrounds the village site. 65,000 people live in the rabbit warren that is the village today. Because the village has never accepted British rule, it has been allowed to run its own affairs. The Hong Kong government takes no responsibility for what goes on here. Every kind of vice and illegal activity flourishes in this extraordinary place. And yet, those who run the walled city have maintained a fierce pride in their independence. Somehow, they have obtained supplies of electricity and other services, and the wires and pipes run like knitting through the narrow alleys. This is the place to which his cousin brought Chun the next day. The fact that the walled city, as it is still called, continues to claim independence, enables people to live their whole lives here without identity cards or other legal formalities. His cousin had made contact with a woman who had a room to let. Just one room, but no one has much living space in Hong Kong. It's more than enough for Chun, and the rent is quite reasonable when you consider that she won't be worrying about an identity card. They decide to take it. Then, Chun found a job in one of the little factories in the walled city, again without an identity card being asked for. The pay was poor, but employers here know that those asking for work are usually desperate and have little alternative. But when he had settled down, Chun began to realize that this new life that had cost so much wasn't very satisfactory. When he went out of the walled city into the land of plenty, he was nervous, even at night, in case he was picked up and asked to produce an identity card. This wasn't the kind of life he dreamed of. He was lonely and poor. If only he could get his wife and daughter to join him. He remembered that the contact had promised to help him further if he needed it. "Send me a message," he had said, "and I will meet you at the Star Ferry terminal." It would put him even further into debt, but at least it would make life worth living. He had taken the plunge and borrowed the money from a moneylender already. The contact could get his wife and child out of China, but it would cost him another snakehead. Well, he'd made up his mind. "Here's the money. Go ahead and organize it for me." Chun had several anxious weeks to wait, weeks during which he would remember all too well the dangers that he had passed through. Would the contact be successful? Or would this second big sum of money merely land his wife and daughter into the hands of the authorities? But his luck held. They got through safely. He continued to work long hours, but it didn't seem so irksome now that he had his family to go home to. But his wife soon found that her new life was hard. She was afraid to go out of the walled city in case she was picked up by the police. It was difficult to make friends in this enclosed community, so full of illegal activities of one sort and another. Then their daughter, Mei Ling, became sick. The only doctors available were unqualified ones practicing in the walled city. "We have no family or relatives to turn to here," she says, "and no clinic or hospital. And when Mei Ling's well, there's no school for her to go to. What will become of her if she has to face life with no education?" But things were not quite as bad as she thought, thanks to an incident that had happened a few years before. Along Nathan Road came a little girl from the walled city. "What do you want?" "I want to go to school." "Why have you come here?" "Because you have a school. Come with me and let's talk to our officer commanding."
Good morning, Colonel. I've got a little girl here. She has no school to go to. Do you think you can help her? Yes, we'll see what we can do. Right. Thank you very much.
The colonel learns that she lives in the walled city, that there are no schools there. She desperately wants to go to school and has heard that the Salvation Army runs schools and helps people in need.
Captain Tom, could you please come to my office? I have a little girl here and I do need your help. Thank you very much. Captain Tom, this is a girl from the Kowloon walled city. She has never been to school at all. And I wonder, is there anything we can do to help her and other children like that? Would it be possible for you to see the Kaifeng Association as soon as possible and get a place for us to start a school for the unfortunate children in the walled city?
Okay, I will go to Kaifeng Association this afternoon.
Thank you very much.
And so, from the Salvation Army's headquarters, Captain Tong set off. She hoped to meet a member of the Kaifeng who run the walled city. Up to now, they'd been fiercely independent and had refused all offers of help from outside. To Captain Tong's surprise, she was taken to a Kaifeng official who was most sympathetic. We would make this room available for you, provided no religion is taught, he said. She was agreeably surprised. It wasn't a large room, but it would do. This would be excellent for a start. Thank you very much. We'll begin at once. The child had started more than she realized. That small room was to be the forerunner of so much. So, the Salvation Army began a school for the children of the walled city. The bare room was quickly transformed into a pleasant schoolroom, and the smartly dressed children looked as though they came from much better off homes than those of walled city families, for the Chinese have the gift of making much out of little. But life in those early days was far from smooth. You were told not to teach religion. You must not have this picture on the wall. Do not put it up again. Many times, the Kaifeng man returned and tore down the picture of Jesus. But it was always replaced, and in the end, he got tired first, and it became a permanent fixture. But none of this was known to Mrs. Chun when she decided to risk going outside the walled city one morning. It was very fortunate she did so. Some mothers told her about this school in the walled city. It's run by the Salvation Army. Why don't you take your daughter along? The headmistress had room for Mei Ling and was delighted to enroll her. The courage of that small child who first came to the Salvation Army in search of a school is still bearing fruit. Mei Ling soon settled in and responded to the companionship of other children of her own age. It's not all singing and games. The children are taught writing and reading. The Chinese children, with their pictograph alphabet with many thousands of symbols that must be learnt, the sooner they begin, the better. Mrs. Chun's visit to the school was to lead to many other things. Salvationist Irene paid her a home visit, and she realized that life here need not be lonely after all. The next day, she took her to a Home League meeting at the local corps, which the Kai Phong had permitted the Salvation Army to open in the walled city. Mrs. Chun found herself one of a room full of women, most of them wives and mothers, and she knew that her world had been greatly widened at a single stroke. She need not be lonely again. The next addition to the services provided for the people of the walled city was a clinic. For the old, and for all who live their lives in the walled city, reliable medical advice and treatment are a boon. This is just one more benefit to this community that admitting the Salvation Army has produced.
I think a good wash will solve our problems. We'll just get that sewage out.
These children are leaving the walled city just for the day. A kindergarten school is all very fine, but what happens when the children outgrow it? This is the answer. They're taken by bus to Salvation Army schools not far away in Kowloon. Some of them go to this primary school. Taking children out of the walled city is a great benefit to them. Here they mix with children with different backgrounds, a stimulating experience. And they can go on to a secondary school if they have the ability.
Your summer uniforms, but I would like to remind you there should be no necklaces being worn.
This is the Salvation Army's William Booth School at Si-Wan Shan.
Be down to your knees.
Now we are going to slide the bead. First of all, place the flat.
Teaching is in English. Practical subjects, such as cookery, are taught.
Slide it thinly. Don't slice too thick. Otherwise, it will not easy to cook the beef.
At present, not many children from the walled city reach this level. There are many reasons. The problems of an overcrowded environment and the poverty of most of their families are among them. But the point is that they can get this far. The door is open. Back in the walled city, the Salvation Army Corps is meeting. Chun, impressed by his wife's new enthusiasm for life, largely the result of her newly made army friends, comes along to see for himself what this organization is that can so change people's lives. But Chun was to benefit from this visit in another way. He was taken to the immigration department by a Salvation Army officer, where they sorted out the problem of an identity card for him. For the Salvation Army to vouch for him, his status was soon legalized. At last, that magic card that will bring peace of mind to both Chun and his wife. The work of the Salvation Army in the walled city has been greatly helped by this group, the Kiwanis Club of Hong Kong. Without their generosity, it would have been difficult to have made such good progress. The Kiwanis realized the need for money to provide the places in the schools, and they started a sponsorship scheme. Sponsors commit themselves to contribute a sum every month to pay a child's way through school. And every member of the club has taken on a sponsorship. Right now, they're considering the Christmas party.
Is it agreed that we're going to have a Christmas party for the Kowloon City School this year as usual?
Yes.
Agreed. Yeah, the kids always enjoy that a lot.
As usual, Vince, we need a Father Christmas.
Vince, last year you did a very good job. And would you like to be a Father Christmas again this year? Yes, I'll be more than happy to do it again.
been a Kowloonian for many years now. You have your own management consultancy. You have a beautiful family. In fact, you're a very busy man. Why is it that you spend so much time in a place like this?
Jenny, you know, I wouldn't miss it for the world. That's what it's all about. It's what Kiwanis are all about. There are Kiwanis all over the world that are sponsoring these children's education, donating money every month so that you, the Salvation Army, can give them an education. And this is the only chance during the year where we have an opportunity to be personally involved in that education. And without the education that you're giving them, they'd never get out of the alleyways of the walled city here, would they?
Despite the help of the Kiwanis, there are still children in the walled city without sponsors. Will you give one of them a chance by becoming their sponsor? Just contact your nearest Salvation Army headquarters or write to the Salvation Army, Kowloon, Hong Kong.